Well, for the first time in in any economy, the IT and auto sector is together. Unlike Detroit and Silicon Valley, we have Noida, Pune, Madras, Bangalore. Is there any, and we are, after all, the mind, body, and spirit of the auto industry. And is there any way in which IT can cost effectively, and I mean really cost effectively, contribute to our growth so that we can achieve the auto OEMs in getting the 2015 vision? Thank you.
Kiran, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, very briefly, you're absolutely right about the fact that they cohabit can help to push this along. But yeah, I think we're getting there. If you look at the design for the Tata car, its use of IT, in my understanding, I don't know if there's anybody from Tata Motors here who can give you figures, but help them to very considerably cut down both the development time and cost. So it's a great example of how you're able to begin from the overall design of the car itself using IT, and then use it all the way down, maybe even in the production line through CAD/CAM things and so on. So you are able to integrate IT in, not only, as Jerry said earlier, in the car itself, where you're using things that are IT, both software and hardware driven, but in the process of making the car, right from design, you're beginning to get it. So I'm quite sure that in a few years, you will begin to see a lot of action in the automobile market, because India is a big market, and IT is going to play a very major role in helping it go along.
So the question that I have is this, is that we've heard so much yesterday and today, and of course in a lot of the publications, both internationally and locally, that the IT industry here is taken off, and Kiran has given us a very good number. It says there's 100,000 crores now is the export which the IT industry has been able to achieve. Why can't the IT industry substantially reflect itself as a first impression, which is the most important impression of the country, that when a person comes into the country, he sees a really state-of-the-art IT implementation at the immigration?
Terrific question, thank you. And I do hope India Today will give publicity to this friendly visitor to our country who has asked, I think, a very important question. And this is a repeat theme, by the way, that we keep getting again and again. Our young men and women are going around improving the banking systems, the immigration systems, the healthcare systems of countries around the world. And yet we are not using IT to give our own citizens and our own visitors here the same benefits of productivity and quality improvement. And clearly immigration customs is a very good example. Having said that, let me tell you that we've had some very good improvements in income tax. We're going to see some extraordinary improvements in company affairs. In the financial markets, today we are ahead of the US. We have T+1 settlement in India, which they don't have in the US. So there are spots here and there where we have used IT, but in general, and certainly in terms of creating the appropriate marketing impression. I mean, coming into Mumbai airport has to be the most horrifying experience anybody can go through in their lives. It's like Dante's Inferno. And no, Delhi's better. Trust me, I know a thing or two about airports. You say, I mean, how can this be an IT superpower or even an aspiring IT power? Forget about superpower. This doesn't look like it, and I think we do have to do something about that.
With a lot of transactions going on, there is always a fear, especially the credit card frauds and so on and so forth. How is India tackling that? Mr. Karnik especially, would you like to say that it's safe to do the transactions, or be careful, or how are we developing that?
Jerry, probably you should answer that. Security initiative for us.
I mean, the reason Kiran's bounced it back to me is that this year and next year I'm going to be heading something called the Cybersecurity Forum in NASSCOM, and we're working on this. Fundamentally, I mean, let me be quite honest with you. Every time you give your credit card to a waiter in a restaurant, you take far more risk than you do when you give it out on the internet. Let me just be very candid. Nobody wants to talk about that. But the fact is, the level of risk that people do by sharing passwords, by giving their ATM passwords and cards to their children and so on, are far higher than anything you do on the internet. And people somehow associate internet and electronic commerce with greater levels of fraud. That's one of the first things that we need to know. As far as generally dealing with fraud and security is, we've got a fairly decent IT Act. We're going to get it amended. In fact, some of the ambiguities in the IT Act allowed an overzealous prosecutor and policeman to unnecessarily arrest somebody from eBay. So we are working with the government very closely to get it amended, to get it modernized. But as the Act stands, it's fairly good. We're working very strongly with improving knowledge among policemen in terms of getting them to know more about how to prosecute, how to use IT. NASSCOM has instituted 2 awards to the police station as well as a policeman or policewoman who uses IT best in their investigation. So we are trying to get some of that culture in, because ultimately this could be the Achilles heel. If India gets a reputation of having poor security, the whole industry could get into trouble. So we are concerned about that, and we're working on that. It's an ongoing thing. There's no perfect security. One September day, the most unsafe place in the world was downtown Manhattan. So there is no perfect security, but we will try, and I think we are at it, particularly because we're concerned that it's a marketing issue. I have a question from Shekhar Dasgupta. Well, India has done very well in service exports. One of the constraining factors going forward will be the low-tech usage within the country itself, including in education. What steps is NASSCOM taking? Mr. Karnik, the digital divide and this endless question every time. Please respond.
Okay. No, thanks, Shekhar. I can talk about this for hours, but I won't. Jerry's got a flight to catch, and all of you got other things to do. No, I think it's a very, very good question. The usage of IT within the country, as Jerry mentioned, in the more modern sector has been low, except in banking and financial services. In the more core sectors of this economy, I don't mean core as in economic definition, but the more core otherwise, it's been dismal. We're not using IT anywhere to the extent we could in areas like agriculture, e-governance, empowerment of people. In all these areas, however, there are a few cases, a few pilot projects, a few small projects which are like tremendous, sparks, and they are fantastic. The challenge is, how do you convert these sparks into prairie fire? How do you spread this across the country? In any area that you look at, you have a project that's done outstandingly well. But I do think, and I do want to end on this, that the term digital divide, I talked earlier of clever words. It's a nice alliteration, so everybody likes it around the world. The UN and World Bank love it, so there are lots of proposals, lots of studies, lots of work. I think it's a great misnomer. In fact, if anything else, the digital technology can be a bridge, and can be a bridge between the divides that exist even otherwise in our society, which are much larger: urban, rural, rich and poor, literate, illiterate. And I don't mean this rhetorically, I mean it actually, because through using ICT, as we have already seen in the case of telecommunications, distance doesn't mean anything, and you can be in a rural area and be as well connected. And what this really does is the possibility of providing information and power to people, because ultimately, I think in the ultimate analysis, the poor are poor not because they don't have money, but the poor are poor because they don't have information and knowledge. And if there are ways of getting it to them, not only will you change their economic well-being, you will change the relationship that they have in terms of societal structures. And to me, that's important. Yes, what is NASSCOM doing? Very briefly, we are trying to push this along as vigorously as we can through government, through many of our companies which are actually working on this, through foundations set up by these companies, and through trying to act as an advocacy and pressure group to try and bring this going. You will see a lot more attention on this in the coming year than we have done even in the past. It's not an easy problem, but I think we are now very aware of seeing how to push it along.